My name is Tom, and I'm 35 years old. I'm currently working at a local company called a corporation. Originally, I wanted to attend an industrial college, but my parents refused to pay for my tuition. So, I saved up by working part-time whenever I could and managed to go to college. Eventually, I was able to land the job I wanted. Many of my peers had financial support from their parents and were always having fun, making a lot of noise. I bet they never had to worry about money, never had to juggle studying for exams and working part-time. I remember thinking that as I watched them. They were good people, but their conversations were always about girls, darts, drinking, and the cute girls at their part-time jobs. Meanwhile, my small savings from high school weren't enough, so I was always working. We had different topics, values, and financial situations. I was always exhausted from studying and working, so I couldn't really become friends with them. But I couldn't afford to complain about my situation. I knew I couldn't rely on my parents, so I worked as hard as I could. My parents were both remarried, and my sister and I were only half-siblings. My sister, Jenna, was 12 years younger than me. She resembled my stepmother and was both cute and beautiful. I adored her, but I felt like I was only half a part of the family, which made me feel out of place at home. However, my parents seemed to prefer living just the two of them, so they almost ignored us, which minimized the awkwardness with my stepmother. They were always going out together and came home late, so we rarely saw them. While our parents provided for our basic needs, we hardly ever talked. Maybe that's why Jenna and I became somewhat quiet and introverted. As Jenna grew older, she stopped talking to me much and stayed in her room most of the time. I didn't know what she was like at school, but she stopped smiling at home, and I worried about her. I tried to talk to her as much as I could. At first, she seemed annoyed, but I kept trying. I kept the conversations going with simple things like dinner's ready or welcome back, talking about TV shows and little things that happened during the day, just trivial stuff. I made sure never to ask personal questions like how's school or anything too intrusive. That was because, for some people whose relations with friends are not very good, those questions were what they didn't want to be asked. Jenna probably thought I was an annoying brother, but at least I wasn't someone she wanted to avoid completely. Eventually, she started to talk and even smile a bit with me. I disliked our parents, but I loved Jenna. I was happy to reconnect with her. I got a job when Jenna turned 12. If I had really wanted to, I could have left home and lived away from my parents, whom I didn't like very much. However, I felt it wouldn't be good for Jenna's mental health to leave her, who was already going through a difficult adolescence. Alone with our indifferent parents. Our parents only cared about their own happiness and resented spending any money on us. In elementary and middle school, when expenses were low, we managed to live relatively well. But once I reached high school and needed money for tuition and activities, their attitude became increasingly hostile. They were always in a bad mood, and it got worse whenever money was mentioned. Reluctantly, they give me the money, but every chance they get, they make a genuinely displeased face and complain about how much it cost. My parents loved shopping. Mom had a sweet tooth and practically lived for buying clothes, cosmetics, and hobbies whenever she went out. Dad drank a lot and enjoyed socializing, so he often dined out. Because of their habits and Dad's modest income, there was no money left for us to do what we liked. Feeling a sense of crisis about my future, I talked to my advisor and homeroom teacher in high school, asking for permission to work part-time on weekends and holidays. Normally, they would have told me to focus on studying and extracurriculars, but after a meeting with my parents, it became clear they had no intention of paying for anything beyond basic living expenses and tuition. We'll pay for the minimum costs of living for the kids, but beyond that, we don't see the need. They're not small children anymore, they should manage their own expenses. My father said without hesitation. Seeing my father's expression, my teachers understood everything. After my father left the room, the teachers remained silent for a while before simply saying, "Do your best," and I started working at a nearby fast food restaurant. Balancing work with school activities was exhausting. I had to study hard since private schools were out of the question, and I also had to maintain my friendships. In hindsight, being constantly exhausted and too busy to dwell on my drawbacks or lack of friends was a blessing in disguise. Despite always being tired, I managed to live fairly well with Jenna in a house where adults were almost non-existent. One day, when Jenna turned 23, she suddenly told me she had a boyfriend. I was shocked because Jenna had always been shy and unapproachable. Apparently, a businessman who frequented her workplace had approached her. Given that Jenna was undeniably beautiful, it made sense, though I had mixed feelings. I think you know, Tom, but I hate this house. I've managed to endure it so far because you were here. But now I can't stop the feeling of not wanting to come back here. Even though I've only known him for a short time, he asked me to marry him. I know he said it quickly because he knows my situation. We've only been dating for 3 months, but I want to marry Joshua. I was so taken aback by the surprisingly short duration of Jenna's relationship with her yet-to-be-seen boyfriend that I almost fell over. I understood her feelings. But marrying an unproven man could lead to future hardships for her. Let me meet him first and then decide if you can marry him, I said, and Jenna reluctantly agreed. Well, I plan to introduce him to you anyway. Okay, she replied. Jenna was still just 23. And now, without any professional or romantic experience, she's trying to run away with a man she met just 3 months ago. Thinking of marrying someone without deeply knowing his character is risky, and it's probably because Jenna is still young and naive. Although I don't have a lot of experience, I do have some, and I've heard stories from friends who have had bad experiences with unpleasant women. Because of that, I felt a twinge of unease about Jenna marrying someone she only knew on the surface. Despite my concerns, Jenna seemed happier than ever. Until now, she had been either expressionless or only smiled when talking to me. But now she has a calm expression that anyone can see radiates a pink or light orange aura, and she looks full of life. Seeing her like that, I felt a bit relieved. Surely, he must be treating Jenna well. If that's the case, it should be okay. I thought, looking forward to the day I would meet him. But my hope was about to be shattered. The meeting was set at a fancy restaurant chosen by her boyfriend. Ignoring my warnings, Jenna was set on getting married, saying, "Oh, by the way, the meeting is a marriage introduction. His parents will be there. So please act as our parents." She smiled as she said this. Seeing Jenna's smile, I was starting to feel like nothing I said would matter. I was almost resigned. No, but if he turned out to be a terrible guy, I would have to oppose it firmly. I'm the only one who can protect Jenna. Our parents, who had always been reluctant to raise us, had stopped coming home after Jenna graduated high school. Suspecting something, I checked our family registry. Fortunately, our family ties weren't severed, but our parents stopped coming home entirely. Since Jenna was almost an adult, they had essentially abandoned us. From then on, it was just Jenna and me living together. So, while we were related by blood, we were no longer a family. When Jenna learned our parents had left, she just looked resigned and immediately started looking for a high-paying part-time job. After I insisted she not sell herself short, she ended up working night shifts at a family restaurant while attending college. Because she wasn't very strong, she couldn't work as much as she wanted. So, I covered some of our living expenses with my earnings while she paid for her tuition and part of her living costs. Later, when her job search didn't go well, Jenna decided to take a full-time position at her part-time job. Although the work environment was tough, she preferred it to an office job with desk work, and she seemed to enjoy it. I was proud of Jenna's growth, but I couldn't let some random guy take her away. I had come to feel like a parent to her. For the next few days, Jenna and I were busy with work, and before we knew it, the promised day had arrived. I was so nervous that I arrived at the restaurant 50 minutes early, and Jenna laughed at my awkwardness in a suit. However, her smile seemed forced. She must have been nervous too. Her boyfriend's parents were a big shot at an auto parts manufacturer and a head nurse at a county hospital, a rather elite family. Her boyfriend had also landed a job at a major company in the city. Jenna, clearly nervous, was overly chatty. Seeing her like that made me even more nervous, and we both awkwardly tried to converse. Right on time, her boyfriend and his parents arrived. His name was Joshua. He was tall and slender, with a modern hairstyle that made him look like someone who would be very popular with women. The suit he was wearing was undoubtedly much more expensive and sophisticated than mine. His parents, too, had stern expressions and were impeccably dressed. His father had a harsh, stubborn look that made him seem unapproachable. His mother didn't smile at all and stared at me with a blank, mask-like expression. Feeling intimidated, I greeted them with a smile, and we all entered the restaurant. Even after we sat down, his parents scrutinized me with harsh eyes. Joshua, on the other hand, spoke kindly, "Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming today. I'm Joshua, and I've been dating Jenna. We are considering marriage." I introduced myself, and the atmosphere relaxed a bit. It was Jenna's first time meeting his parents, and she was visibly tense. Then, Joshua's father, Michael, asked, "What a beautiful young lady. Your parents must be very handsome too. Why are you here alone today? Aren't your parents coming?" When I explained, mixing in a lie, that my father and mother were too busy with work to come home often, Michael raised an eyebrow and said, "So, you're saying they are so busy they can't even attend this important pre-wedding meeting for their daughter? No matter how busy work is, they should find a way to be here for such an occasion. How can they prioritize work over this? What kind of parents do you have?" I was at a loss for words, unable to respond to his remarks. He was right. It was strange that our parents couldn't make time for such an important event. As I thought to myself that there was only so much I could do to cover up, I glanced over at Jenna. She looked bewildered, not knowing what to say. Joshua tried to cover for us. Well, her parents travel abroad often and hold important positions, so they might not have been able to change their schedules. But Michael asked, "So, will they attend the wedding?" Once again, we were speechless. Apparently, Michael sensed something from our reactions. His face quickly turned red with anger, and he said, "What? Are you saying your parents can't even attend the wedding? Such parents might as well not exist. I've heard that Jenna is earning her own tuition and living expenses. Are her parents, who are supposedly in respectable positions, really not giving her a single penny? If it's their educational policy that after high school, she should handle everything on her own, that's one thing. But normal parents, if they have a decent income, would at least provide for their child's living expenses so they can focus on their studies in college. A girl with parents like that is no good. This discussion is over. We don't need a girl with such parents in our family. Indeed, our father was so cold to us that it was as if he had left his heart somewhere else. But Jenna and I had worked hard to make it on our own. Although Jenna has some social awkwardness, she has developed a reasonable level of social skills by interacting more and more with people other than our parents. She is also a kind and just person. Jenna is kind to classmates who feel left out and treats them equally, even when other classmates tend to avoid them. For instance, during school trips and group projects, she would always invite the student who usually got left out before the teacher had to step in, doing so with a smile. That student was on the verge of becoming a truant, but thanks to Jenna's constant companionship and conversations, she managed to attend school every day. When I heard this from her teacher, I was moved to tears. Despite her often gloomy demeanor at home, Jenna had grown into such a compassionate person. Yet here she was, being insulted for things beyond her control. I couldn't stay silent. "Michael, what are you saying? Sure, our parents might be a bit hands-off, but they raised us well. Jenna has always been praised by her teachers for her kindness and thoughtfulness. Just because our parents' approach differs from what you expect. Please don't speak of Jenna that way," I countered. Then Michael said, "Oh? So, your parents will be attending the wedding, right? Even if they are too busy to meet now, surely they won't skip the wedding. Earlier, when I asked you about this, you didn't answer. Why is that?" He grinned as if he was enjoying himself. Joshua quickly interjected, "Well, you see, her parents are currently involved in a major project overseas and can't easily come back. So, it might be difficult for them to attend the wedding." Michael looked incredulous. "That's unacceptable. No matter how busy they are, parents should be there for their daughter's wedding. You think you can fool me? Your parents have abandoned you, haven't they? That's why they've left you alone. If that's not the case, let me speak with them via video call now." Jenna, following Joshua's lead, said, "Our parents are so busy that they barely have time to contact us. We don't know when they'll be available." Michael retorted, "See? You're trying to keep us from speaking to your parents because you're not in touch with them. You think you can deceive us? But we see through you. I don't want someone without real parents in our family. Am I wrong? He stared at me with a piercing gaze. I realized it was impossible to deceive him any longer. Moreover, I couldn't imagine continuing a relationship with such an awful family, nor could I allow Jenna to become part of it. We might not have been blessed with the best parents, but we know many kids have had it worse. Working part-time while studying was tough, but I believe I handled my responsibilities much better than those carefree college students. We lived our lives seriously. To have our character judged based on our parents' treatment was too much. Joshua's parents, with their high social status, wanted a perfect daughter-in-law. He was judging Jenna's suitability as a potential daughter-in-law solely based on his perception that she might have mental issues. Just from observing the parents. Just because the parents are flawed doesn't mean the children are too. Of course, having children can bring unexpected challenges. Living with financial constraints can cause dissatisfaction. But Joshua's parents couldn't know Jenna well enough in such a short time to judge her. Michael needed to be taught a lesson for criticizing my sister. I had been smiling inwardly since I learned where he worked. Michael was just about to stand up, as if to say there was nothing more to discuss. To him, I declared, "I should have mentioned earlier that I'm the CEO of a corporation." "I believe you work for E Corp? Isn't that the company struggling and about to be absorbed by ours?" "We were just discussing staff reductions. In today's world, you have to stay innovative to survive. You say you don't need my sister, well, we don't need someone with such an inflexible mindset in our company either." Upon hearing my words, Michael froze with a shocked expression for a while. But then he suddenly changed his tone and said, "What? I didn't know. I'm terribly sorry for my rude remarks. Please, I beg you, don't fire me. Yes, I worked in the same industry as Michael, and I was the CEO of a much larger company. After graduating from college, I originally intended to pursue a technical job in mechanical engineering. Upon joining Company A, I caught the attention of the CEO and steadily climbed the corporate ladder. A few years ago, due to the CEO's chronic health issues and the fact that he had no children, I was named his successor. Company A is a large company with about 4,000 employees, quite different from Michael's company. Although Michael's company is not small, it was nothing compared to mine. After that, I brushed off Michael's various attempts to placate me, took Jenna by the hand, and said, "Let's go." No matter how good he is, having such people as in-laws will only make you suffer, Jenna. You deserve someone better. I then firmly led her out of the store. On the way home, seeing Jenna walking slowly and looking very downcast, my heart ached. She had worked so hard her entire life. Perhaps because of our parents, she likely struggled with the difficulty of life. Jenna had finally found someone she could truly trust. I knew Joshua seemed like a good person. But having to deal with his parents during difficult times would be too hard. Because of this concern, I couldn't support their marriage. I had never seen Jenna so down before. While I felt a sense of satisfaction for protecting her from those awful in-laws, I never wanted to see her so sad. Jenna understood the issues with his parents and softly said, "What should I do now?" Joshua was a good person despite his parents. If she was prepared for it, maybe she could be with him. But I couldn't find the answer and all I could say was, "I'm sorry." Sometime later, Michael's company merged with ours, and I decided to fire him. Thinking of himself as an elite and strutting around, he unexpectedly had to end his professional career. It was said that his character was already reputed to be bad, so he never got re-employed by another company and is now unemployed. Rumors said he became self-destructive after losing his job, and his family was falling apart. I felt a bit sorry for Joshua, but maybe this would help him distance himself from his difficult parents. Jenna remained sad for a while but never blamed me. However, as she stopped talking to me, I began to feel sad, wondering if she still harbored some resentment. Even though it was unavoidable, the marriage had been called off. I feel like it would have fallen apart even without my involvement. Seeing Jenna so unhappy made me feel terrible. But then one day, Jenna suddenly said, "I'm sorry for always showing you my depressed side and ignoring you. But I don't think badly of you, Tom. I know you've always tried to protect me. But he's become just as important to me. So I was really down about not getting along with his parents. Recently, I noticed you've been feeling down too. So I felt I needed to apologize." I looked at her in silence, and she continued. I didn't have many close friends at school, and with parents like ours, I felt hopeless about having any fun in life. Before I started going to school, I mostly only talked to you, Tom, so I struggled a lot when I started elementary school. Everyone else chatted so easily with smiles on their faces. Having been so dependent on you, I didn't know what to do. I was always expecting and demanding things from others, so I couldn't hold a conversation properly for a long time. And home wasn't a comfortable place either, so I had nowhere to relax and got more and more exhausted. As I moved up in grades, people started to see me as the quiet kid. I hated that, but I didn't know how to be more outgoing, and I couldn't break out of that cycle. But you always tried to help me. Even when I spent all my time in my room using my phone as a high schooler, you would come to talk to me no matter how late you worked. Even when I pushed you away, you never gave up on me. At first, I thought it was annoying. I thought looking at my phone was more fun. You saw how Mom only made simple meals and worried about my health. So you learned to cook and made meals with lots of vegetables every day. Even when I didn't know what to talk about and just watched TV, you kept trying to talk to me. Because of that, I slowly learned how to have conversations with people. At first, I was exhausted and thought, please just leave me alone to eat by myself, but gradually, I realized how fun it was to talk to people. I used to think I had to talk about things others liked or about TV shows, but I realized I was overthinking it. The things you talked about were always simple, and talking about those things made my heart feel lighter. That's why, even when school was boring, I could keep going. I really appreciate everything you've done for me, Tom. Jenna started crying, saying she was sorry for everything. I didn't know what to say, so I just hugged her. I could always chat about trivial things, but at a moment like this, I couldn't find the words. I felt like a failure as a brother. As I held her, I kept repeating, "You'll find someone better, Jenna, someone better." Jenna, crying in my arms, said yes and then didn't say anything else. I kept rubbing her back. After some time, Jenna seemed to have recovered, at least on the surface. She went back to her job and seemed happy again. However, perhaps because of what happened before, she turns down every offer from customers. Maybe she still can't forget about him. Despite all my efforts to protect her, this time, I could only watch over her. A few months later, Joshua cut ties with his parents completely, and he and Jenna got married. Even though there are some things I'm worried about, I always tell Jenna to let me know if she ever needs help. If anything happens, I want to assist Jenna as much as I can. We might only be half-siblings, but our bond had deepened because we didn't receive our parents' love. Now, Jenna had someone who would protect her even at the cost of abandoning his own parents. When I congratulated them, Joshua and Jenna smiled brighter than I'd ever seen them smile before. Next year, I'll finally become an uncle to a little girl. Joshua has remained the supportive partner he seemed to be, helping Jenna while working hard himself. I could tell Jenna wasn't suffering because her expression grew more peaceful each time we met. My little sister was going to be a mother. Whether she looked like Jenna or Joshua, their child would be adorable. I imagined myself spoiling my niece with toys and affection. Even before she was born, I was already planning to dote on her. Jenna, noticing my thoughts, smiled happily and said, "Uncle, thanks in advance for everything.